Okay, good, good, good. Vijay, come on, let's get
We start?
started.
All right. Okay. So, courtesy announcements, and all of you can just mute yourself. We can get the proceedings going. Thank you. So, welcome all to the 103rd meeting of BBG South. Despite all the challenges, we have somehow persisted in a continuous fashion. And, gosh, it's almost 6 months now since the pandemic lockdown was declared. Just about a month ago, they said, let's ease the lockdown, and we are now in October. So glad to see all. We have a interesting agenda today. Just two speakers. Let me first of all welcome Mr. Christy Cherian, Chairman, BBG South, to say a few words to us. Christy, over to you.
Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very happy, as always, to catch up with all of you. I missed the last meeting, as many of you came to know. I tested positive when I wanted to go to the UK and therefore couldn't travel. I did 14 days home quarantine. I was asymptomatic, but nonetheless, I had to do another test and prove myself negative. It's I've been through the process, and I must say I appreciate Chennai Corporation. They were very, very efficient, very good. Their man came and checked me every day. Their doctors in the corporation rang me up every second day. So we passed 14 days at home, and I saw a lot of films, for which I'm thankful to Prakash Challa for giving me his portable DVD player. I've got a huge stack of DVDs, so I enjoyed a lot of films. I also, as you know, all of you know, I'm big on reading, and I read a huge amount of books. And the latest author I've come across, and I will just spend a few minutes over him, is a guy called Nicholas Sparks, Sparks. Nick Sparks got into the business of writing a little over 20 years ago. He did his first one, which has been made probably the most romantic film, called The Notebook. The Notebook. If any of you haven't seen it, you should see it. I should warn you, it's a big tear jerker, but still a fantastic story. He's written several others which have also been made into movie. One of them you might remember is uh, the Message in a Bottle. And I have just seen the one which is regarded on Netflix as probably the fourth most romantic love story. It's called um, the one I just told you about. It's called the Best of Me. The Best of Me. So if any of you are interested in these type of stories, please see it or read it, because usually it's very hard to do a screenplay from intricate stories as Nicholas Sparks writes. Uh, the other thing that's come up in the last month or so is very much this developments going on about the vaccine, the things we are learning, and we are going to probably hear our good guest speaker a little later. And so I shan't say anything except that we have probably learned a lot more about this particular virus than we knew in January or February. And I will close here and wish everybody a very good month before we meet again. But hope all of you stay safe and good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christy. There was actually a message from our COVID warrior. He's one who has got a certified COVID certificate. So, you can't dabble with him. He's already gone through one cycle. Hopefully, he won't
Yeah.
have to go through future cycles. Thank you, Christy. Welcome once
Yep.
again, Paul Dryden. Paul Dryden, Deputy Head of Mission at the British Deputy High Commission here. He was away on a long leave, home vacation. He's back. He's now under home quarantine, but probably he will enjoy the break. Welcome, Paul. We have two interesting segments today. The first is a member talk. Mr. K R Sundaresan, who's a member who heads a company called Drill Jig Bushing. It's, if I'm not mistaken, it's a subsidiary of a British entity. He runs his operation here. Sundaresan is a very seasoned um, operator, entrepreneur, manufacturing, specialized automotive manufacturing as well. The other person is a very eminent virologist whom we will introduce more properly a little later. Talk to us all about the pandemic. And for all the others who have logged in, nice to see Jana from Bangalore, Savita. I see quite a few, Arun Martin from Bangalore. So we have quite a few people from across the border. I just asked Jana whether it is all hunky-dory, as the Americans will call it in Bangalore. He says, no, we are all wet in Bangalore. All right. So I hope, that'll explain how things are like. Without much ado, may I now invite Sundaresan? Sundaresan, are you there,
Yep.
sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
To come on, introduce yourself,
Yep.
and you can get started, sir, with your presentation.
Uh, can I do the presentation over a screen share?
Yes, Vikas will help you, will give you
I,
access.
I'll just try from my screen so that.
Yeah, I think you already have the access. Yeah.
So you can see that.
Yes, you just need to, yeah.
Okay. Good evening to all. I am Sundaresan. I used to work for Ford for a very long years. I was there for 12 years before I became an entrepreneur. I I'm predominantly into manufacturing sector, so we are into machining of components, and we do serve the segments of automotive, aerospace, engineering, and hydraulics industry. Post my two ventures, I acquired this company, Drill Jig Bushings, from Mr. Paul. This is a 40-year-old company. I'll just run through the presentation for you. It's a quick 10 minutes presentation about our infrastructure and capabilities and what we do. This is a 40-year-old precision manufacturing company. We have two plants. One plant is located in Chennai and one plant is located in Trichy. We have two operations in each locations. This is part of an affects group, which I'll just touch base while I'm doing this presentation. It is a 60-40 joint venture with Bonham and Turner UK. They are based out of Nottingham, and they do basically our marketing and distribution in Europe and in US. And we are the largest and most reliable manufacturer of precision steel components, especially the drill bushers. And we serve the tooling industry, the automotive, aerospace, and defense applications. Predominantly, we are into aerospace and defense. We have an excellent customer base across the world, and we are a TS certified company. From a quality perspective, we meet the requirements of the global demands. We have a good facility with good technical capability with around 150 people working in Chennai and Trichy. And we are basically into precision machining, turning, honing, cylindrical grinding, and centralized grinding, which is more related to manufacturing. And these are all our plants. We have two plants in Chennai, and some of the machines that we operate in Chennai plant, to just give you a glimpse of what we are. And this is our partners' information. Bonham and Turner is a 102-year-old company. It was founded in 1918. They formed a joint venture with Drill Jig Bushings in mid 90s. They are out of Nottingham, and they have a large warehouse today. So they procure the parts from us. We are single source to them, and then they warehouse it and then distribute it within 24 hours to all its customers. They have an online portal from which the customers order the goods, and then they get delivered in 24 hours. Predominantly exactly into the space that we are operating. They support both aerospace and defense in UK and USA. They were working with Rolls-Royce since World War II, and they are AS 9000 certified, which is a requirement for the aerospace industry. And some of the components that we do for the aerospace and automotive industry, basically machining and some precision components for all of you to get an idea about what we do, what's our end product. And all our products are distributed by Bonham and Turner. They have a catalog that they have, which is basically all standard products. And our nearest competitor is Misumi of Japan. And we compete with Misumi of Japan, and they produce some of their components out of Malaysia. But our advantage is that with Bonham and Turner with us, we are able to reach to customers and serve them faster. So all our products are put in a catalog and then given to the people, and then they order it. A new catalog was introduced during the Aero Show in 2019, which has also got the history of the company's association with World War II and how they supported the early years of the motorsport in UK. And that's about Drill Jig. But coming back to our group, Affex is our group here. Basically, we are into aluminum, and we formed this company. Myself formed this company in 2016. In 2017, we acquired Drill Jig, and in 2019, we established two facilities in Trichy. And the facility in Trichy, which is near Chennai, 300 kilometers from Chennai down south, we have a machine shop, we have an aluminum casting unit, and we have a warm forging facility. And our capabilities is basically to give aluminum castings, forgings to the industry. We serve automotive, aerospace, engineering, hydraulic, and defense. Both companies put together, we have around 350 people working in 4 manufacturing locations. And this is our vision, group vision. We want to be a leading manufacturer of high precision components with application of latest machine manufacturing technologies. So we have almost all the manufacturing technologies required for a component supplier. And this is our facility. This is the top one on the right is our die casting plant in Trichy. We chose Trichy because we thought, we will go to a tier 2 city where we will have the stability of workforce, and the workforce will continue to work with us for a longer period of time compared to a city like Chennai, where we will become a training ground. So we are very happy with the location, and we are very happy with the team there, more committed, loyal. And of course, on the bottom, what you see is the Drill Jig. We are basically into aluminum casting and machining. I'll show you some photographs of our plant. So this is our machining plant in Trichy. So we have roughly 150 people working in this machine shop. This is our new die casting plant. Again, we have around another 100 people working here. So we expect with the full capacity, we are right now operating at around 20% of our capacity, and we are filling with new businesses and orders. We expect these two facilities to employ close to around 500 people before end of next year. And some of the quality infrastructure that we have, we are fully equipped to serve the segments that we operate. We are full-fledged end-to-end supplier of components to our customers. And of course, just to give you a profile of our customers, we are into automotive. We do exports to both US and Europe. And we are also into aerospace, and we support some of the aerospace and defense requirements in India. We supply for heavy engine factory in Avadi. We supply for Brahmas. We supply for HAL. We are also working with Lockheed Martin and Tata Motors, and then Boeing and Tata. We are basically, I could say that we are engaged with all the people who work with steel as one of their product. So we supply products that goes into their tooling. On the automotive side, of course, because of our casting unit in Trichy, we do that. And just to update the team, my partner, Bonham and Turner, was involved with the ventilator challenge that the UK government called on the manufacturing companies to come forward and support in making ventilators. They were roped in by Rolls-Royce to support some componentry required for the ventilators. I was told that it was a very big success, that people across came forward. They worked through the Zoom calls and made the prototypes, supplied parts, worked offline, delivered. And I was told that from the NHS in UK, they have 15,000 ventilators on order, and they have fulfilled most of their orders for the needs of the country. So we were very proud that we could participate in the challenge and we could support the requirements of ventilators. So towards that, our people were felicitated recently. So just these two people are our partners, Peter Bonham and Charles Bonham. They were the guys who were leading that support of the ventilator challenge. And of course, on the COVID update, in India, we were out of operations for 3 months from 20th March till 8th of July. But we ensured that all our employees were taken care. There was no salary cuts. We paid them in full. We again started to work in 2 shifts in Chennai and 3 shifts in Trichy. Unfortunately, we lost one of our young employee. One of our quality manager passed away due to COVID during the 3 months closure. He got it through his father, and then he suffered quite a bit before we lost him. All our employees now are covered under COVID insurance scheme, and we conduct regular awareness schemes with our people on the norms to be maintained both at our plant and when they go back and live with their families. So it is very important for us because we have a lot more challenge because we are back in full swing. Fortunately for us, the market has picked up. The automotive industry, both two-wheeler, passenger cars, and the tractor segment is on an upswing, unprecedented upswing rather, I would say. So there's a lot of pressure on us to work full time. So our people are coming regularly, and we are working in some locations at 3 shifts. So it poses a challenge that we bring awareness to them, we protect them, we also ask them to be careful about their movements and their behavior. So there is a regular awareness programs and controls that we have put in place. We have also participated on a CSR activities with a couple of foundations. We supported Vishwajayam Foundation with some joint exercise on supporting food and medicines to the Royapeta Hospital health workers and guest workers. I was involved personally with Ramakrishna Mission in Salem, where people on the streets, especially the street vendors, the orphans, health workers and auto rickshaw drivers and porters in the railway stations were not taken care. We provided them with rice and groceries. And I got one very unique request from one of my friend here who asked me to support some instrument musicians who were not having an income for a very long time, and they were in very bad shape to be supported. So we pulled together a team of consortium of friends, and then we approached people, and thrice we could support 1,000 families with collective efforts of distribution of groceries and provisions. I think they all needed very much that support during the time of no income for them. At least for people who are working and who are working from home, there is a mechanism for survival. But there are a lot of people who needed support. So we were involved partially to the extent that we could support with these activities to support the society. That's it. Thank you very much from my side. So I think I've kept it sweet and short, Vijay. For the 10 minutes that you gave me, I think I've covered very much about what we are. Okay.
Thank you, Sundaresan.
Yeah, thank you, Vijay.
Wonderful presentation.
Thanks, wonderful, terrific.
Who has seen a manufacturing plant? I mean, yours looks very impressive. Thank you so much for that. I've just been told, Christy, by Paul Dryden that Oliver is actually logged in and he would like to say a few words. So can I just invite Oliver? Are you there? I hadn't realized you were online.
He's joined, didn't he? Hello, Oliver.
Oliver.
Hi, yes, I'm here. I've been here since 5 o'clock.
Nice to see you, Oliver.
No, great.
Been incommunicado for a long time, so nice to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
And you. I don't know if you can see my camera. Let me just see. I don't know if...
we see you, we hear you.
We can
hear me.
Yes. Yes. And we are seeing you.
My phone seems to think I'm driving, so it won't let me turn my camera on. That's funny, isn't it? It's some kind of safety feature. Yeah, no, it's good to see you all. I can see you all. Sorry you can't see me. I'll keep talking and trying to turn my camera on at the same time.
No, I
Oliver, we can see you.
Oliver.
We can see you.
I can see you.
Oh, you can see me.
Yes.
Oh, very good. It says here my video is stopped. Okay, great. Well, it's good to see you all, and thanks very much for inviting me along. I saw that I was on the agenda to say something, so so I spent a couple of hours this afternoon preparing an in-depth presentation for you. Why are you laughing? But anyway, no, it's good to see you all, and yeah. I was away for a couple of months. I was working from the UK for a bit, and I had a few weeks leave as well. So let me give you in a couple of minutes a kind of overview of what we've been doing recently. I'm sure Paul may have kept you up to date as well, but really very much through the COVID period, we had 3 months of a bit like everybody else, reacting to the crisis and seeing how we could keep going. And now it feels a bit like we're back to normal, albeit not normal, if you know what I mean. So for the first few months, we were very much preoccupied with repatriating British nationals. And in around the country, we repatriated about 17,000 British nationals and people who live in the UK. And we had a couple of flights from here. We had a flight from Chennai. We helped with a flight from Kerala as well, and the flight from Chennai went via Bangalore. So that was a really busy period up to sort of May for us. And we also helped UK companies or companies or Indian companies with UK companies in their supply chain to keep working. So that meant representations to the Tamil Nadu government to allow them to keep their factories open, or for their staff to be able to travel into the office if they were critical workers. So that was kind of a couple of things that we were doing during the crisis period. But now it feels, like I say, like we're back to normal, albeit working remotely and everything online. So we've been doing webinars. Paul organized a really great webinar with Dundee, the city of Dundee, last week. We've done some things with Tamil Nadu Guidance Bureau. We've had some business wins. You may have seen in the press that the sari shop, Nali, opened its first shop in London, which is incredible, really, because it goes against the kind of decline of the retail industry, the high street, and during the COVID crisis, to open a shop in London during this time. It's fantastic, and that was our team who very much helped from the beginning, Nali, do that. And you'll have seen, of course, TVS Motors bought Norton Motorbike. So there's been some business as well being done throughout this period. A few other kind of updates and you know probably by now that the British Airways flight is back up and running. I think 3 flights a week, and so we helped to negotiate with the Tamil Nadu government to help that flight get back in business. So hopefully you will benefit from that if you haven't done so already. You may know that our visa office here closed. That shouldn't make any difference at all to you guys applying for your visas if you need them for the UK, because the VFS office is still open, of course. It just means that the visas are now processed either in Delhi or in Sheffield or elsewhere in the UK. They're not processed here in Chennai anymore. So we don't have a visa team. But like I say, hopefully that will not make any difference at all to your applications. I'll stop there, except to say perhaps that over the next year, you're going to hear a lot from us on climate change and everything related to that. Because we're hosting the Conference of the Parties, the 26th Climate Change Conference of the Parties in Glasgow next November. So this year will be a year of climate action for us. And that'll be everything associated with climate as well, including renewable energy, which has seen an uptick in investment over this lockdown period. I think one example is that everybody's seeing the cleaner skies and is now quite keen on getting electric two-wheelers. We're seeing that around the country. So climate is going to be a big issue for us. Renewables. We took on a new renewables lead for India, who's going to be based in Chennai, and that's Srijit Menon, who used to be my EA. He is now our renewables lead. So I'm employing a new EA. And emerging tech as well is going to be something we're going to look into to see whether we can improve our links with people in Tamil Nadu on emerging tech. So I'll stop there. It's great to be connected. I'm looking very much forward to the talk later, and I really enjoyed that talk just now. On that, it's good to hear about new businesses or businesses. Oh, they're not new businesses, but it's good to hear for the first time about businesses with good connections to the UK. So thanks very much, everybody, and I hope to see you all in person soon.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you so much. Your coming online is really a pleasant surprise. We've been expecting you, I think, since we started this in June, perhaps. So nice to see you again. Oliver, by the way, apart from coming on to Zoom online, he also Zooms on the road on a bicycle, if I'm correct, yeah, with a navigator in tow. So anytime you see a guy streaking past with fully equipped safety gear, look out. He might have the Union Jack flying as well. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you so much. We now come to the segment of the guest speaker, Dr. Jacob John. Sir, are you there? Dr. John? Dr. John actually came on earlier and I said hi to him.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce you, sir. So we're first of all, very happy, very glad to have such an eminent person as Dr. Jacob John, to be addressing us at a time which is, we are at the turnstile, all right? Many of us felt that with unlocking, things would get better. We were under lockdown, severe lockdown protocol until somewhere in mid-September. Then things opened up. And now the statistics for Chennai appear to be gradually slowing, but everywhere else, cases are going up. So Dr. John, first of all, started his career at CMC Vellore. CMC, as you well know, is a premier medical teaching institution as well as a first-class hospital facility. He started his career in pediatrics, then went on to infectious diseases. He has a PhD in virology. In between, he has also worked and gained academic qualifications in both the UK as well as the US. His entire life, if I may say, has been spent in this area of medical research. He was also emeritus medical scientist with the Indian Council of Medical Research. And before he officially retired, was professor and head of department at CMC Vellore for virology. So over to you now, sir. We are more than happy to be able to hear you out. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. Can I?
So you need to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted, but the screen.
Yeah, I can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah. Can I enlarge the screen? Speakers?
No, I think we're fine.
So, okay. Hide.
We can hear you, sir.
Yeah, okay, all right. Shall I continue?
Yes,
please. Yes, please.
Okay. Christy Cherian, Vijay Krishnan, and all friends. I call you friends for courtesy. You're all strangers to me. Can I call you brothers?
You're welcome.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Right. Vijay sent me a few questions or concerns that you all have.
Key concerns, yeah.
So I will speak in response to some of those issues that we have raised. You have raised very interesting issues that any well-read, thinking, educated people should raise. One of the most important and timely questions were about the downtrend of numbers that we are observing these days. Now, India is like Europe. We are like 28 countries into like a European Union in an Indian Union, and each state has its own language and a lot of variations in their behavior. And if a child is born in Uttar Pradesh, the child's chance of survival beyond 5 is an order of magnitude lower than if that child was born in Kerala or even Tamil Nadu. Kerala and Tamil Nadu are on par. So we are 28 countries, and therefore we have had 28 epidemics. And each state has its own district epidemics. So it's a multitude of epidemics. And if you statistically collate and cumulate all of them, you get a national epidemic curve. And that national epidemic curve peaked around September 15, 16, 17, 18. And then since 19, the daily numbers have been coming steadily down from 95, 96,000 per day to 90, 85, 80, 75. Now it is below 50,000 per day. So it's for real that the epidemic curve is coming down. However, that doesn't mean good news to everyone, because those who have not been infected so far remain still vulnerable, and the infection is still spreading. So what does the peak mean? I hope some of you would have at least read that short paper on herd immunity. When the ratio of the immune and the unimmune shift over time, there is a point at which the virus finds it extremely difficult to spread, because the next person the virus meets is immune, the next one is immune, the next one is immune, whereas 4 months ago, everyone was non-immune and available for infection. So the speed of the epidemic shifts, but for those who are uninfected, unlike Christy Cherian, those who are uninfected continue to be at risk, and we cannot let our guard down. Okay, so that therefore the peak behind us is good news in the sense that a lot of people are now infected and immune, but it is no good news for those who have not been infected, because they still remain at risk, as if the epidemic is still raging. The epidemic is still raging. On the graph, it is coming down. And that epidemic phase will eventually reach a steady state when you call it endemic. And that is likely to happen about 6 months from the peak. So February, March of 2021 is when we expect the numbers to be small and fairly steady. That is the endemic state. It's very much like influenza. 2009 influenza is still with us, the epidemic influenza. So this virus will also remain with us unless we eradicate it like we are eradicating polio. And it is possible that we can do it. All right. What about mortality? Now, we got news about the coronavirus before we saw the coronavirus. The same thing happened. We heard lots about HIV/AIDS before we saw HIV/AIDS. And I remember in 1980s, I wouldn't even swim in a swimming pool in a hotel in the United States because nobody knew how it was spreading. I wouldn't sit in a toilet seat in the, any airport or without cleaning it thoroughly. We had no idea how it was spreading. And whereas the coronavirus came already telling us a lot about it, about the spread. Droplet spread is already airborne because that 2 feet between us, the medium is air. The smaller the droplet, the nuclei of the droplet with the virus can move faster. The wind and the aerodynamics of the place where you are, and if you sneeze or cough and throw out millions of viruses, then somebody at a far distance is also at risk because we have to breathe and therefore we are all at risk. However, the early mortality figures that we saw from Wuhan and from Italy have not been reflected in what we saw in India. Very early, we had a lot of mortality. Since then, our mortality rate has been declining, and currently the mortality, if 100 people get infected, 100 people get diseased, only 2 or 1.8 have the risk of dying, which is lower than any Western country. Even if you make corrections for age, because our population is a younger age group, our median age is 20 odd, whereas the median age in many countries like Italy and others will be about 40, 45, 46, 47. So that has an advantage. The longer you live, life expectancy, about 75, 80, you have high risk. Even if you make all the corrections for this, we still have less than anticipated mortality rate. Again, this is statistics. For the individual, anyone can get severe disease and go into respiratory failure, and in spite of treatment, you could die. That is a odd behavior of this virus. All the viruses we have known, I could sort of brush them with one picture. They're monochromatic. They have a particular way of causing disease, and we know about it. And vaccines seem to work extremely well against measles or rubella or chickenpox. Whereas this particular virus is not monochromatic. It is multicolored. It has very different pathways of causing pathology. And that has been an intriguing issue. And when you look at the background noise of all our virus infections, this virus or a virus similar to this, we have never seen. Human population has never seen, except for the Middle Eastern coronavirus and the SARS that appeared in 2003. So this is a very unique virus, and our experience is unique. It is totally unanticipated. We expected influenza pandemic anytime because influenza viruses have a tendency to mutate and mix between animal, bird, and human influenza viruses, and new viruses emerge to which humans don't have any immunity, and therefore a pandemic is seeded. 1918, the great pandemic flu, 1957 pandemic flu, 1968 pandemic flu, and 2009 pandemic flu. So between 1918 and 1957, there are more than 3 decades. But then within 1 decade, another pandemic, and then 1968 and 2009, again, a large gap. We could get another pandemic of flu anytime. There is a global network of flu virus identifying labs. You have one in Chennai, there is one in Vellore, several in other parts of India, almost in all regions of the world, so that they pool their information to predict what's going to happen next, or to find any unusual, newly emerging influenza virus, pick it up immediately wherever in the world it happens. This 2009 began in Mexico. 1918 began in North American continent. The 57 and 68 pandemics began in China. Those were all surprises. Hereafter, we will not have a surprise in the sense that we will pick it up within a very short span of time if a pandemic appears. And that is where people were focusing their attention. Then came this virus spreading like influenza, but with 10 to 30 or 50 times the death rate of influenza. It is not like AIDS, nor like tuberculosis, but against all of them we have treatments or prevention. Whereas when it comes to this coronavirus, we don't have either, and therefore we are extremely vulnerable, and we had to resort to non-pharmacological interventions to reduce the speed of spread. There is a phenomenon for all pandemic viruses which is not well explained. Now let me say, that how do you make a live attenuated vaccine? You pass the virus in the same culture cell, same medium, same laboratory cells, again and again and again and again. It loses its virulence. It does not change its genetic makeup. So it is quite possible that every 7 days the virus is changing host to host to host. So by now it has gone through hundreds of generations by the time you get it today. And it's quite possible that the virulence of the virus has dropped. This will have to be investigated, and I'm sure countries where they are looking at the genetic variations of the virus very thoroughly, they will come up with explanations whether the virus, without changing its genetic structure, has it become less virulent. But there is another interesting phenomenon here. Death rates are low in many low-income countries. Low income means low hygiene, low sanitation. Okay, so India may not be a low-income country by definition, but we are definitely a low sanitation, low hygiene country. So we are equal to many of these low-income countries. And it seems to me and others that these low hygiene, low sanitation countries, there seems to be low death rates. the question remains to be answered if those who might have died of COVID because of your immune makeup, have they been killed off earlier by other infections, and therefore the stock left behind are more robust in their immune response, and therefore they have less mortality? Intriguing question that I will leave it like that. Will we have a subsequent wave of epidemic? Many European countries have had second, third waves. If you look at the United States, again, as the virus expands to various states, there was one wave in the beginning, then a second wave in the middle, and now they're going through a third wave. Will we have such a wave? It is not predictable. It's not very easy to predict. However, when you look at South Korea or Germany or Vietnam or New Zealand or Kerala state, wherever they were able to flatten the curve, they only borrowed time. The virus then hit back and caught up with the remaining susceptible people, and thereafter you had a second wave or even a third wave. I don't think India flattened the curve to any discernible level. Therefore, the probability of a second wave, to my mind, is extremely low. Now, just a word about herd immunity issue. The prediction was that the epidemic would end when you have 60% people infected. Now, in a bell-shaped curve, the peak is half of that 60%. Half on the left side of the curve, or the peak, the vertical line, half on the right side. So approximately 30% should have been the peak. And it's very difficult to understand what exactly our herd immunity is, but there are corroborating evidences from 2-3 sources that we probably had somewhere between 27 and 35% herd immunity in that middle of September, in which case we never flattened the curve, in which case we will not get a second wave, in which case our epidemic will end by February, March next year. These are natural phenomena of the behavior of the virus. So it's unlikely that we may have a second wave. However, festivals are coming. Everyone is fed up with restrictions of social contact. Everyone is relaxing. Mortality rate is low. So the government is not extremely worried. So if we let our guard down and people don't wear masks, people crowd, get into buildings with poor ventilation, air conditioned, etc., you may have an accelerated transmission frequency, which may be localized outbreaks or epidemics, but I doubt whether that will add up to shifting the pattern of the all India epidemic. So wherever people let their guard down, you expect more infections. Okay, so you can't let the guard down. That is where the government has to both teach people on a repeatedly give them these messages, at the same time enforce the avoidance of crowds, people not wearing masks, all those behavior that reduces the speed of spread must be enforced. All right. The next question was, will the virus change by mutation like the influenza? So far, our experience is that it has not changed so far. From December of 2019 to October of 2020, the mutations of this virus has not resulted in a changed antigenic pattern. Therefore, these mutations are not meaningful in terms of response, immunological response, and protection, immunity protection against infection. The second infection stories that we hear, with the millions of infections globally, we have less than 50 instances proven second infection. So that is an exception to the rule that you don't get reinfected, you don't get a disease a second time. Many viruses do have second infections and second disease also. Mumps, for example, you can get mumps a second time. So some of these immune responses are not robust enough, whereas you never got smallpox a second time, you never got measles a second time, no chickenpox a second time, etc. So viruses have some differences in their immune response, our immune responses to different viruses. So one vaccine will work. If it works anywhere, it will work everywhere. What is the probability of vaccine becoming available? There is a lot of hope. Almost all viruses except HIV/AIDS, we have managed to make vaccines and protect people. What is more interesting is that we have vaccines that surpass nature's capacity of inducing immune responses. I'll tell you one classical example. Human papillomavirus infects sexually active young women. The immunity induced by the natural infections is not protective against the onslaught of the virus. So after a few years, that young lady is prone to cancer of the cervix of the uterus. But you give 2 doses of the human papillomavirus vaccine, that girl will not even get infected with the papillomavirus. Such strong is the immunity that vaccine creates. The Salk polio vaccine, 2 doses, produces sky-high antibody levels, unnaturally high antibody levels, and it lasts a long, lifetime. So vaccine-induced immunity, if you have the right ingredients, mix, antigen, etc., you could get excellent immunity surpassing natural immunity. So we are hoping that some vaccine will work. Interesting thing about the COVID vaccine research is that someone mentioned that every problem, human tendency is to learn more. HIV taught us a huge amount of immunology, and COVID has brought us biotechnology of science fiction. Okay, you need to give a virus antigen, part of the virus at least, either killed virus There is no time to attenuate and get a live vaccine. That will take 4 or 5 years. So killed virus is one possibility, or the important element of the virus, the spike. You have seen the crown or the outside coat with a spike. That protein is the important element for the virus to catch hold of the human cell and get inside. So you can make that protein in the laboratory, purify it, and then inject it. Fairly expensive, time consuming. Each batch that you make has to be certified that it is absolutely pure and uncontaminated, all sorts of things. So a factory manufactured vaccine has to go through such quality control that it's quite expensive. So you cheat the body. You make the body itself create the vaccine and then respond to the vaccine. There are two different body systems that will do this. The immune system is ready for responding to the foreign antigen, the virus antigen. So you smuggle the genes for making that protein into human cells by infecting the human cells with a totally harmless virus, adenovirus, which does not cause any disease. So you infect people with that virus and the body gets infected, lots of cells get infected. All of the cells now become factories that make the coronavirus spike protein. And so we make our own vaccine, and that makes it very cheap, and that makes the vaccine absolutely pure because the genes will guide the production of the pure product. So that is one innovation that we are seeing, that for the first time, the adenovirus Trojan horse basis or being given to human beings. And phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 trials are going on with vaccines of that type. Both the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine and the Sputnik V are based on the adenovirus. Now, if you can smuggle in the genes of the virus, the genes gives a blueprint to the place where the cell manufactures protein. And that is called a messenger. The messenger sends message to that factory where the protein is manufactured. That messenger is an RNA. It's called messenger RNA. So if you can smuggle in the messenger RNA, you don't even need the body to make the spike protein. I mean, you don't need the genes to make the virus protein. The messenger RNA will guide the production of the virus protein. And that is what the Sidus Carillas vaccine is, and the Moderna vaccine, some other vaccines are like that. So this is fascinating. We are sailing along the ocean in a very basic skeletal boat, and we are building the boat while we are sailing. We are learning all sorts of problems and solving them, but we are in the middle of the ocean. We are not building the boat while in the dock on dry land. We are building the boat while we are sailing, and so success is not guaranteed. But with all our biotechnology experience, and we expect some vaccine to be available pretty soon. Of course, Indian vaccine manufacturers are very good at upscaling production, making it very inexpensive. And therefore, we hope that we will have some vaccines in, let's say, by the time, unfortunately, vaccine will not be available to to cut short the epidemic. We were tantalizingly close, but we have our rules to follow. And the rules are made for peacetime. We are not smart enough to tweak the rules for wartime. So we are stuck by the rules of the peacetime. So up to this point, we have rapidly progressed. From this point onwards, the regulatory agencies and the phase 1 trial and the phase 2 trial and the phase 3 trials have to go on before the world would accept a registered vaccine. What Russians did was something very interesting. They said, while we are moving into phase 3 vaccine, we will give temporary provisional registration so that any health worker who wants to take the risk of unknown side reaction and take the benefit of the potential protection against coronavirus, you can have the vaccine. For that purpose, Putin allowed the registration of the vaccine only up to January 1, 2021. They said, unless you prove that the vaccine is good by phase 3 trial, by January 1, 2021, the registration is off. So it's a fairly smart way of doing things. The Chinese did that even without registration. They just ignored all the rules, and they gave their armed personnel, anyone who went to Africa, all the company, they just went ahead and vaccinated a whole lot of people with unregistered vaccine. Anyway, we are stuck. We need to have registration done. By the time all these are done, I expect that we will get the vaccine about simultaneous with the end of the epidemic. Now, people who are senior citizens and those with diabetes will still have the risk of getting infected even when the numbers are low. For them, vaccine will be a boon. School children, if they could be vaccinated, they will no longer become transmitters of infection from crowded school campuses back to their homes. There is also a potential that if vaccine is available by 2021, and if the world put their heads together, we can eradicate coronavirus using a vaccine. But then the world has to come together. What coronavirus did was to, make the world fall apart. WHO, CDC, people to whom we normally look for guidance, everybody failed us. Each country went on its own journey. So we have not worked together. So I'm pushing the WHO for this one purpose, eradicating the coronavirus. Let's get back together and let's go back to the pre-corona phase of our lifestyle. Everybody working together against a pandemic. That is what happened in 2009. Okay, I think I will end here. If you have any other questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. In view of the time, I will stop here. Thank you very much for a patient listening.
Thank you, Dr. John. Your address was actually very absorbing. I am sure there are a few people who may ask questions. So maybe we can take one or two, or maybe even three. If you have.
Can you get it on the chat box and then
yes.
read them to me, because I have problem both hearing and.
Fair enough.
Okay, right.
So in your address, you stopped short of mentioning a timeline where the vaccine is likely to be available, only because at this stage we do not know. So you said 2021. Is it the first half of the year or the second half of the year? Is there some in the community that is working collaboratively? Is there some view that it will be available at least in the first half of 2021?
Yes, that is not only my own hope, that is the hope of a lot of people who are in this field, that definitely in the first half of 2021. The question is how soon. People say that some of these, say for example, the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, phase 3 is going on. Therefore, there is no reason why we could have that vaccine registered in the UK before the end of 2020. You probably would have heard about a Brazilian death. Have you heard about it?
Yes.
During the phase 3 trial.
Yes, someone died. AstraZeneca, yeah.
Yeah, one volunteer died. All indications are that they quickly, the Brazilian regulatory agency quickly checked and found that that volunteer had placebo, not the vaccine. So therefore, they did not stop the trial.
Currently, while I'm waiting for anybody to send in questions through the chat box, the basic minimum safety protocols or hygiene protocols, that is face mask, social distancing, and hand wash, are they adequate to see us through right through next year?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. You know, I don't know whether you recall, early April, I began my education on through the Hindu on mask wearing. Both WHO and CDC were a bit skeptical about mask wearing. But however, today, we know that mask is equal to vaccine. If everyone wears a mask, those who are uninfected are protected from severe disease by more than 75% reduction of the probability. The more than 75% reduction in the probability translates to those who would have got severe disease. Those who would have died would not get severe disease. Those who would have got severe disease get mild disease. What is the reason? The person who wears a mask, if infected, broadcasts very few virus particles into the air. The rest are captured in the mask. That is why surgeons wear surgical mask in the operating theater. That is a mosquito. So if the person who is uninfected wears a mask, he inhales far fewer virus particles if they happen to be in the environment. So there is a dose response phenomenon in infection. If you get infected with a huge amount of virus at one time, you tend to get severe disease that leads to death. If you get very few viruses in the beginning, you tend to have longer course of infection, more time for the immune system to respond, milder disease, and no death. So mask is equal to smallpox vaccination, is somebody who wrote in New York Times. Okay, so mask is excellent. Now, social distancing need not be 6 feet if you have masks. The whole idea of a mask is to make the social contact safe. 6 feet is avoiding social contact. So you can come even within 2 feet of distance if all of us wear masks. So therefore, a lot of manufacturing activity, a lot of commercial activities, a lot of religious activities can be resumed provided both masks and at least 2 feet of distance, good ventilation of the air, and hand hygiene, because you tend to touch objects where virus might have fallen. These are the best bet for individual protection that will translate to community protection. And if you do that, unlocking can be made reasonably safe. In spite of the impending festivals coming up, people must have festivals. All right?
So two questions have come up. One is a few of our members necessitated by business have to travel, let's say from India to the UK or somewhere in Europe. In those regions, they are going through a new wave. The concern naturally is, do you think they are adequately protected moving from one country zone to another zone, maybe in the next 2 to 3 months? That's one of the questions.
Air travel, as you all know, is also getting relaxed. The rules and the stringent rules are getting relaxed. There is a risk of infection in the aircraft if somebody is infected. So airlines are also taking precautions to minimize the risk of infected people during their infectious period of time boarding the airplane. Still, there is a risk because somebody would be unknown and tests are all negative, yet infected. So all airlines insist on mask wearing. They tweak their air conditioning flow of recycling the air. And for these reasons, the risk of transmission in the aircraft is no more than almost in regular social activities. So I think you can safely travel provided the airlines have all these precautions available.
One other question, in the type of vaccine, it's natural human tendency to compare one with the other because of what we get through the media. So for instance, is the Moderna vaccine different or better than the Oxford vaccine is one of the questions that is asked.
Neither vaccine platform has been previously tested in humans. As I said, this is new biotechnology. This is science fiction. So therefore, we cannot predict. The phase 3 trials will tell us if one vaccine is better than the other vaccine. My own hunch is that the whole killed virus that is being made in Hyderabad may turn out to be the best. However, we'll have to wait and see for actual data, and then we will know which one is, how they pan out in their quality. There are two elements, safety and efficacy. Both have to balance out. So we'll wait and see. However, there is another ingredient or element here. The first vaccine to be registered will have a head start. If tomorrow the the Serum Institute of India's vaccine is registered, that will sell fast. The second vaccine that comes through, even if it is better, they will have to compete with the already in the market vaccine. But that raises an important issue. Who is to decide a vaccination policy? That's where our government is disappointing, particularly if someone says that if I get elected, I will give you free vaccine against coronavirus. That is not cricket, not at all. Everybody should be equally treated. In public health, every intervention must be equitably distributed. You cannot have favoritism in public health. Okay?
Fair enough. So we've been told that there is something called an antigen or antibody test.
Yeah.
Is this something that most or all of us can have ourselves tested for, whether we have been previously tested positive or otherwise?
Well, that's a very good question. The question that I've been thinking about for quite some time. And as I said, this coronavirus is not a monochromatic one. It's a multicolored one. Surprises, surprises, surprises everywhere you turn. It causes heart attack, it causes brain disease, it causes kidney disease, it causes blood clotting, it causes pneumonia, it causes so many different things that we can't put it together as, can one virus do all this? Okay. Another surprise is the antibody test. The antibody test available today tests for any one of these 4 antigens: spike protein 1, spike protein 2, receptor binding domain of one of these spike proteins, and the outside nucleo, the capsid, the outside coat of the virus. Any one of these 4 is used by different companies to make their antibody test. None of them is good enough, in the sense that they don't pick up antibody. Well, the decay time of the antibody in people seem to be fairly fast. In about 2 months' time, the individual antibodies that you have, the ICMR has done 2 serum surveys. Both the antigens they use, the antibodies kind of virtually disappear after 2 months. So, antibody as available today is not good enough to tell you who is immune and who is not immune, unless you have positive result. Negative result does not tell you that you have not been infected. So we'll have to wait until they clean up the antibody testing. So we are a bit stuck. Antibody is not going to give the, the immunity passport, so that you can certify somebody as immune. That's not going to work out very easily. Antibody also has surprises for us.
Okay. So we have some members in the UK. So there's one question. In UK, patient groups are talking about something called long COVID, and the NHS there is also recognizing it. Is there something that you can shed light on this particular issue?
What was the term used?
Long COVID. If I'm reading it correctly.
Long COVID.
Yes.
I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know what it is.
All right.
Just to kind of add to that, long COVID is a condition which patients who have recovered, I think initially in the first wave, early days of March and April, but they have been continually suffering, so they have
okay.
bouts of...
All right, I get it. All right. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that people have invented a new term, long COVID. Okay, as against short COVID. Okay. As I said, this is a multicolored virus. Those who recover, some of them recover completely, back to normal, back to work. Some of them have chronic fatigue syndrome. They're constantly fatigued, they're unable to work, they're unable to think, they're unable to type on the typewriter, or on the computer. So their life is, so bad. There are people who get heart problems, lung problems, brain problems, psychiatric problems. All of these have been described. That is also the problem with coronavirus. And for me, that is the more important reason to vaccinate and protect against the coronavirus infection itself, because the vaccine will have no risk of this long corona. Okay, so we need vaccine even to protect against this post-COVID syndrome, which can be devastating for some people.
So there's another concern. Most of the northern hemisphere is slowly heading towards 2 seasons, very wet, very cold, or combination of both. This is the time normally people get what is called a common cold or flu-like symptoms. Is this likely to accelerate or aggravate the spread of COVID-19?
Again, we don't have data or information to go by because we have not even seen one full year with this virus. However, it spread so rapidly during December, January, February, globally, in cold countries. And come April, May, June, July, in hot countries, where epidemic peaked. So climatic conditions do not seem to be modulating the speed of spread very much. However, if people huddle inside the home for cold weather, and if you could have intrafamilial spread, but then interfamilial spread will be reduced, intrafamilial spread will be increased. So we'll have to wait and see how things develop. But by the winter that is coming along, 30, 40, 50% of people have all been infected, and therefore the susceptible population also would shrink. As long as you can protect the elderly in their homes. If you have elderly people, then continue wearing masks even at home. Have at least, if possible, 10 feet distance between bodies sleeping. Okay, those kind of common sense approach will protect senior citizens. But otherwise, what weather conditions will influence the speed of spread is anybody's guess at this time.
Thank you, sir. But that is a challenge, especially in urban India, where a lot of residences are severely challenged in terms of space. So
Vijay,
we've taken. All right. So we will. Thank you, sir. We will end our session now. I am very sure if we wanted, we could engage you more, a lot of other issues, but we have to end this session now. May I now call upon Payal. Payal, are you there?
Hi, Vijay.
Hi,
I'm here.
Payal, to deliver the word of thanks. Payal has been very quietly listening to all the proceedings from wherever she was. So, Payal, all over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'd like to start my vote of thanks by thanking Christy for opening this meeting, and good to have you back, Christy. I know others have seen you previously, but this has been my first virtual interaction of listening to you. Sundaresan, that was a really interesting introduction to your company. And what caught my eye here was precision to perfection. And I was just thinking that quite an interesting principle if we had to take it to our real lives also. How do we actually embrace perfection if we seek to do it? So thank you for that. When I was listening to Oliver, it was interesting because the lady in me really picked up on Nalli opening a sari shop in London. Maybe India will also be responsible for radical fashion change in London. I hope so. And I hope that many more such showrooms do open up. Something interesting that Oliver spoke about, and I thought that was, I was personally very excited, was about climate change. And I would just like to tell the audience that, if y'all are Netflix junkies like I am, then there is a wonderful film by David Attenborough on climate change and on our planet. It's fascinating. It really makes you sit up in your chair. So do watch it. And I'm really excited that, the High Commission has got this on top of the agenda. And last but not the least, coming to Dr. Jacob John, I guess from March onwards, we've been hearing so much about COVID, right? On the television. And, you know, it's interesting, doctor, but it just never seems enough. There's always new information to absorb. I think there are new, you know, periods of time that spring up, you know, new information. Like you said that, you know, we're already 6 months into the pandemic, and, you know, what's happening now versus to what was happening in March. So thanks for giving us that brief and that very, very comprehensive, actually not even brief, but a very comprehensive and detailed insight. So thank you very much. And I hope you lovely people have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Payal. Hemant, are you there? Hi, Hemant. All right. If you have anything to say in terms of notices and then announce when the next meeting is.
The only notice I have is for the next meeting, which will be on the 19th.